Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you're all healthy and doing well. Thank you for joining us today as we continue our series of virtual town halls brought to you by University Advancement. Our town halls aim to share information and updates directly from university leadership with you, Miami's most loyal and dedicated supporters. Today, I am pleased to welcome Beena Sukumaran. Beena became Dean of the College of Engineering and Computing in August 2020. And prior to joining Miami, Beena served as Vice President for Research at Rowan University, where she worked for 22 years in a variety of roles, including professor, department chair, and president's fellow. Beena, it is great to have you at Miami and great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
So thank you, everyone, for sending in questions. As before with these town halls, there's some clear themes that have emerged that we will work with. To start off with, Beena, can you tell us a bit more about your background and what attracted you to Miami?
Sure, Tom. Thank you for having me on this show. So I am actually a first-generation college student. I grew up in Malaysia. My dad was actually an engineering assistant in Malaysia. My mom was a homemaker. And then, I moved to India for I would say in 8th grade, and then did my rest of my high school and college in India. And then I moved to the US for graduate studies after my undergraduate in India. And so I did my graduate studies, my master's in Auburn, and my PhD at Purdue. So the reason, why Miami, so some of it is actually personal, and some of it is professional. So the personal reason is I was vice president for research, but I missed being in the engineering profession. And the reason for that is if you look at the engineering or computing profession, you don't see very many people who look like me or sound like me. And so I wanted to come back to the profession. I'm extremely committed, I would say, to the profession and just opening doors for future generations of folks to come into the profession. Why Miami? I mean, Miami is, when I looked at Miami University, I was actually, I really liked the liberal arts foundation that we build on. So even our engineers and computer scientists, they build on this liberal arts foundation. And I thought that produces a unique engineer or computer scientist. And that is something that really tugged at my heart because, I went to Rowan University because we were starting an engineering program from the ground up. And we didn't want the traditional engineer. So that follows that theme. And, so that was my reason for being attracted to Miami.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So as I referenced in the introduction, August 2020 was when you got here. And so, I know that you've been spending a lot of time externally and a lot of time internally. And so as you've gone through that process, what has emerged as some of your strategic priorities for engineering and computing?
Sure. Before I start on the strategic priorities, I did want to talk about what has emerged as a tagline for our college. I couldn't meet any of my faculty or staff or my students face to face. So I had meetings with them online. I've had social hours with my faculty and staff. And what emerged in terms of a tagline was IQ, imagination, ingenuity, and impact. And I think that captures, what we do at the College of Engineering and Computing at Miami. In terms of my strategic priorities, I think it comes from my background. I would love to recruit and retain a diverse student body. So more women. Right now, proportion of women in the College of Engineering and Computing is around 20%, which is the national average. I think we can do better. And actually, it's also a national priority, I would say. Last week, I was on the call with all the Ohio engineering deans, with our legislators. And one of the things that we're facing is, we've been talking about a demographic cliff, right, where we don't have enough college-age students. So when we are looking at opportunities, when we are not tapping into about 50% of our population in our profession, I think there are opportunities there. So I see that as a huge opportunity. And also, I believe it will bring excellence into the field. So more women, more students of color, and when we talk about diversity, there are lots of elements to diversity. More first-generation college students, students from various socioeconomic backgrounds, students with disabilities. So that is one of my biggest priority. So if we are bringing in a diverse student body, our faculty and staff also have to reflect that. So that is, again, something that I'm committed to, that we recruit and retain diverse faculty and staff. I would also love for faculty, staff, and students to be more entrepreneurial. So that is something that has always been a priority for me, even when I was VP for research. And now with President Crawford's the Innovation Center, a College at Elm facility, I feel we are ripe for that. We have lots of actually faculty who are interested in that space. Could we get them to engage in that? Could we give them the background to succeed? Same thing with our students, right? We have the Center for Entrepreneurship. So students seem to have more opportunities. Our faculty and staff maybe less, and I think we can build on that. So there are things that we can do. In terms of engineering and computing education, I would say we are focused on looking at degrees of the future. So some of our traditional engineering departments that we have now, I feel it's going to evolve because the profession is rapidly evolving. So we have, and we have the Boldly Creative initiative that the university has been, funding. Provost Osborne has said, put money behind it. President Crawford is very supportive of it. So when we think of it, we have like a BS in robotics that we are just rolling out. Actually, we'll be admitting our first class in fall. We have a master's program in clinical engineering that we are also going to start in the fall. So this actually started even before the pandemic, the need for clinical engineers. So what a degree in clinical engineering will do is to prepare engineers for a hospital setting. Or it would be they could work in the biomedical device industry and get it through regulatory affairs. So we are going to give them knowledge on those two skill areas. Then we are looking at certificates in automation and industrial manufacturing. And for the future, we are thinking of degrees in, say, cybersecurity. We have even thought through, and in fact, the computer science department just approved a BA in computer science, which has to go through further approval processes and so on, but making it more accessible to a broader swath of our students as well as future students. And then, of course, a big priority of mine is to expand outreach to alumni, friends of the college. So I would say friend raising, right? So that is definitely something that is a priority.
Well, that's wonderful. I know that, at Miami, we talk about being sure our students are robot proof, right? So as they
Yes.
walk out into that market, they're in a really strong position to continue to create.
Yeah.
And not be made obsolete. And clearly everything you're putting together there is spot on with being sure that we have those kind of graduates.
Yes.
So you listed a lot of wonderful things, and clearly you've hit the ground running. When you think about the friend raising and the fundraising, where do you think, like, what are the top three things that kind of come to you as places that philanthropic support can really move the needle on your priorities?
Definitely. So one, I had actually top five, Tom.
That's good.
But if it's top three, I would say scholarships, right? Because when we think of our students, especially in light of the pandemic, lots of our students' financial situation has changed. And if we are going to attract a more diverse student body moving forward, that's a priority. So both at the undergraduate and graduate level. The other thing is what makes Miami special, right? So for some of our special programs, like the Lockheed Martin Leadership Institute, the Socially Engaged Engineering and Computing. So these are programs that we could use support for because that's what makes us special. And then, one of the other areas is how do we recruit and retain world-class faculty, right? So that is also a challenge, especially in some of our disciplines, because they can be taken away by industry that can afford to pay so much more than what we can afford to pay. So, so even having, say, endowed positions that will make it more attractive for some of these faculty to remain here, that is a priority. Then, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So we are in the process of actually hiring a coordinator to do outreach to high schools and so on. Not only high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, so that students are thinking of engineering and computing ahead of time, and they're coming into the profession and they're planning for it, right? And that is actually being funded through philanthropic support, that position. So that is, one example of how we could invest, especially around diversity, equity, and initiative. And then, of course, the infrastructure, right? Infrastructure in terms of labs, equipment, for our students and for our faculty and staff to be successful. So those are my top five.
Wonderful. I'm glad you went to five. Thank you for going to five. It's a very challenging thing, obviously, to come to a new place. Certainly, to do that as you're leading a college. Of course, we have a pandemic out there, but as you sort through that, what sort of comes to your mind as the greatest challenge that you're in the midst of, given all those particulars?
I would say one of the biggest challenges that we do face, especially in light of the pandemic, is our budgetary situation, right? So budgets have been hard hit, and so that means there are less resources for what we used to do. But that doesn't mean we can't climb out of it. But that is one of our big challenge that we are facing right now. And then, of course, for me personally, starting a position at this time amidst a pandemic is itself, very challenging when you can't meet people face to face, right, Tom? Like we have never. I mean, I think when I interviewed is when I saw you last face to face, and so we have never had the chance to sit across a table or be in the same room. So I think just the opportunity to meet some of our students, faculty, staff, alumni, whoever it might be, face to face, I would, I'm just looking forward to that day.
I know exactly how you feel there. It's I'm getting tired of all this virtual stuff, and you're used to being with people, and I think you and I were commenting a little earlier. You get some energy off that,
yes,
and some creativity and spark. So I
yes.
completely understand. So the next question that we have is, when you think about your college, and you clearly have a lot of terrific ambitions about where to take it, right? We've sort of been talking about that. When you think through those, what are the things that you've identified that you want to, keep the same? What do you want to protect as you're sort of moving into all those innovations?
One thing that I definitely want to protect is our undergraduate mission, right? I mean, that is something that we have built ourselves on. It's that undergraduate excellence and that student-focused education where every student knows who to go to get help, the opportunity for our students to work with our faculty on research. So that personal touch, that is definitely something I would love to maintain. Similarly, along with that goes our class sizes, so I would say our primary mission, that is one thing that I would definitely love to preserve.
So you touched on class size, which is
Yeah.
a perfect segue to the next question that we've received, which is when you think long term, what's a good class size? What's your sort of ideal class size? Now, obviously, that's going to really vary based on what class it is, right? But
Yeah.
when you think about maybe better put sort of enrollment in the College of Engineering and Computing kind of writ large, what sort of number comes to mind there as a good number for your college?
Tom, it's hard to pin down because I think for some of our lecture classes, we do have somewhere around 40, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm.
We would love it to be around 25. That would be, I would say, ambitious goal. But for our labs, we keep it small. We keep it at 15 or even sometimes, in that range, 15 to 20. So I would say our lectures could be around that 40 mark, but when it comes to labs, we do downsize it, and that is where they get that, project-based learning and that hands-on learning, right? It's tough to put a number because I know there's been a push university-wide to take a look at our class sizes. And I know in College of Engineering and Computing, because of the heavy demand, especially in some of our areas, the class sizes crept up. But we would like to bring it down, and we are actively actually recruiting faculty right now. And we are hopeful that we can bring it down for the future.
Well, that's great. I've got a son that goes to a different institution in engineering, and I think he would love to have a class of 40.
Yeah.
Those are great numbers. So, the student experience in the midst of the pandemic, what has the College of Engineering and Computing done in terms of trying to foster that hands-on experience that is so essential to the way that you educate that student body?
Yeah. So Tom, what happened is when last March, when the pandemic hit us suddenly, and I know mine is shut down in like 2 days. So last spring semester, when we pivoted to that, we couldn't do much in terms of that project-based learning. Faculty did try at that point. I mean, in fact, they would go into the labs and they would videotape themselves and they would collect the data and send to the student. But since then, we have learned quite a bit on how to adjust to this new normal, right? And so in all our classes, I think we have the high flex model. So where we have a combination of virtual lectures and then in-person labs. So we have had in-person labs last fall and this spring. We have made our labs even smaller, so they actually get time slots that they have to sign up for, and they come in. And sometimes I even received a video yesterday when I asked some of our department chairs, how is it going, right? Of one student working remotely while one student is in the lab. So one is doing some component of it, feeding the data into the student who's in the lab, and they're trying out this project-based learning. We have done that with our senior capstone design. So they are building their products or building their designs as we speak. So we have adapted, and we have adapted quite well. And our faculty, I mean, they should get the credit for that. They just, they look for things that work. We even have lots of our computers in our labs. The students can remotely log in and access some of those high-end software that we need for our courses. So they've even set that up. So big call out to our faculty as well as our IT support on our campus. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the way we've adjusted as an institution, I just completely would underscore, the faculty and how they've just jumped in and made it work. And that's no easy feat. That's a lot of work. So.
Not at all. And our students, right, how they have adapted to the new normal. And they have been just outstanding. I mean, I just met with our student council yesterday, and all of them are adjusting to this, and they have figured out how they learn better. They've figured out how to mentor each other through these online platforms. So they're doing that, so they do take care of each other as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's absolutely great. I've got a final question. I'm going to read it because it's a little long, but it's important. So the question is, during fall career fairs at Miami, there seem to be fewer opportunities for mechanical engineers when compared to other Ohio schools, such as the University of Dayton and Ohio State. What are the plans to change the opportunities for mechanical engineering studies at Miami?
Sure. Tom, I think you are quite aware of this. I would say that one of the things that probably, if I were to think of things that I would like to change, is, our outreach to our alumni as well as to corporations in the area, right? So we have lots of alumni. In fact, the College of Engineering and Computing has had 60 years of alumni. And sometimes we haven't engaged with all of them, especially some of our more senior alumni. And they are at some of these Fortune 100s, Fortune 500s, and we are re-engaging with them. So in fact, just 2 weeks back, we had a call with one of our alumni who connected us with I would say, the global recruiter for GE. So we were thinking through some of this. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking of that we need to change. So we want to keep some of the things that we have been doing well, but if I were to think of some of the things that we could change, would be in terms of how much of outreach we do to our existing alumni, because I think they can open the doors to lots of these corporations and companies that are out there. And I would say we definitely need their help. And we have all of them. In fact, whoever I've reached out to have been willing to help. So we had this great alumni who immediately connected us with the chief of their recruiting for GE. And he said, let's figure out a way so that GE will be coming to campus, right? So that's just one example. So I would say that is one thing that we have to do better. I know our career services on campus, they do an excellent job. I mean, they prepare students for the career fairs, they get them ready. Somewhere where they need assistance is sometimes our students don't show up. So companies might sign up, but then the students don't show up. So we have to make it worth the company's time, right, when they do come. So that is something that we are working on, and but I do hear this concern, and we'll definitely look at ways to change that moving forward.
I don't have this as a question from our attendees, but I would like to just ask you to point out all of the outreach you've done across campus, because I think, what you've brought along with Jenny Derrick and the Farmer School, other deans that are looking to be more collaborative, it's really, really important stuff. So could you spend a couple minutes just sort of walking through, where your thinking is in terms of those kind of joint curriculum, joint programming, that kind of thing?
Sure. Jenny and I, Jenny Derhock and I started around the same time. And we have actually, we were also roommates for 2 weeks. So, so we got to know each other very well. And so we talked about actually joint programming that we should do with FSP, right? We already have like an engineering management degree where both the colleges do contribute. It's housed in our college. But we've also started looking at other programs that we want to work on. So a master's in management, right, with an engineering focus. Could our students sign up for that? So that is one that we've talked about. Financial engineering is another one that we've talked about. And we think there's a lot of merit to it. And we are still, in fact, I think both our associate deans are working on that currently, looking at what we could do jointly, especially to offer either an undergrad or an undergrad and a master's in financial engineering. With our College of Arts and Science, actually, Chris Makaroff and I have talked about setting up an alumni group to foster some of these entrepreneurial, I would say mentors for faculty and staff who are in that space. So we have already had that discussion, and we are identifying alumni that we would like to reach out that would jointly help our faculty. So that is one thing. With our College of Creative Arts, in fact, I had reached out to Liz Mullinex, and in fact, we had some very exciting conversations around what could we do jointly broader than that emerging technologies, right? Because there's a strong focus on bringing in that creative side into engineering and computing. So could we do it in our product design classes? Could we teach something jointly? We've talked about even a master's program that we could offer together. And again, we are looking at possibilities in that front. Education, health, and society, I mean, that is a natural. In fact, I think Dean Dantley, before his retirement, we spent a lot of time together looking at how do we work together so that we recruit from some of our urban schools in Cincinnati, in Dayton. In fact, he opened, because I'm not local to the area, he opened up some of these doors for me. So I would say along those lines. And then with our regionals, I mean, this just because they have engineering technology and we have engineering here, we actually do meet, our leadership teams meet regularly to talk through some of the things that we can work on doing. So those are with all our academic units. Of course, with Randy Thomas and Aspire, I do work with him very closely, especially as the College of Alumni is being discussed. So one of the things that I reached out, in fact, just 2 days back, was around could we have some international partners? Because I had worked with some partners from India when I was at my previous institution, and they just started a rural incubator in one part of India. So they had reached out again, and I thought that would be a good partnership. Maybe there's things that we could learn from each other, yeah. So.
Well, thank you for going through that, Beena. Again, I just think that sort of outreach and collaboration is taking hold here, and you're right at the forefront of it. So I just wanted our listeners to see all of that energy that's going into those places. Beena, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I know your schedule is always a busy one, so making some time is very appreciated. And thank you to everyone who's joined us online. As always, we desperately and definitely thank you for your support. It makes the difference here at Miami, and our students and our faculty and our programs. So thank you very much. Stay healthy, and hopefully we'll get to the end of this pandemic before too long. Anyway, take care, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you.